Good evening, and welcome to Point of Contention, our dedicated forum for exploring the critical issues shaping our society. Tonight, we delve into a profoundly contentious and multifaceted question. Should abortion be restricted after the first trimester? This is a topic that evokes deeply held beliefs and touches upon complex ethical, medical, and personal considerations. Joining us to dissect this issue are Mr. Samuel Green, who will argue in favor of restrictions, and Ms. Olivia Chen, who will advocate against them. Our debate will proceed with opening statements, followed by moderated discussion and rebuttal rounds, and will conclude with closing statements from each of our guests. Let's begin.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. The question before us is indeed one of profound gravity, demanding not only intellectual rigor, but also profound moral consideration. I stand here today to advocate for the implementation of legal restrictions on abortion procedures subsequent to the first trimester of pregnancy. My position is predicated on the undeniable biological reality of significant fetal development by the 12-week mark, and the concomitant emerging moral status of this nascent human life. By this juncture, the fetus is no longer a mere conglomeration of cells. It possesses all major organs, a detectable heartbeat, and an increasingly discernible human form. To disregard this developmental trajectory is to ignore a fundamental biological truth. Consequently, we must acknowledge an escalating moral consideration for the fetus as it progresses through gestation. It is, at this stage, far more than mere tissue. It is a developing human entity with a clear potential for life. Society, I contend, has a compelling interest, indeed an ethical imperative, to protect this potential human life, particularly once it has surpassed these initial developmental milestones. Framing restrictions post-first trimester is not an attempt to summarily dismiss women's rights. Rather, it is a conscientious effort to achieve a judicious balance. A balance between a woman's autonomy and the escalating moral weight and inherent value of the developing fetus. This is about recognizing a shared responsibility towards the most vulnerable among us, those on the precipice of life, and ensuring their protection under the law.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. While I appreciate Mr. Green's articulation of his perspective, I must firmly assert a countervailing position, one rooted in the principles of individual liberty and comprehensive health care. I argue unequivocally against the imposition of legal restrictions on abortion, particularly those arbitrarily demarcated by trimesters, because they fundamentally infringe upon a woman's bodily integrity and reproductive sovereignty. A woman's right to make decisions concerning her own body and her reproductive health is a cornerstone of personal autonomy, and should not be subject to governmental overreach that dictates such intimate choices. It is crucial to understand that abortions performed after the first trimester are not undertaken lightly. They often arise from heartbreaking and complex circumstances. These include the devastating discovery of severe fetal anomalies incompatible with life, emergent risks to the pregnant person's physical or mental health, a delayed awareness of pregnancy due to various systemic barriers, or sudden, dire socioeconomic upheavals that render carrying a pregnancy to term untenable. Imposing restrictions under such diverse and often tragic conditions not only lacks compassion, but also carries perilous consequences. We risk compromising women's health, their safety, through the potential rise of unsafe, clandestine procedures, and their overall socioeconomic well-being. Our societal focus should not be on erecting restrictive legislative barriers, but rather on ensuring universal access to comprehensive reproductive health care, education, and support systems that empower individuals to make informed decisions.
Thank you both for those compelling opening statements. Mr. Green, Ms. Chen raises the issue of severe fetal anomalies often detected later in pregnancy. How does your framework for restriction compassionately address such tragic diagnoses discovered after the first trimester, or the profound impact on women facing these desperate situations?
Dr. Reed, these are indeed heart-wrenching, hard cases, and I don't diminish the anguish involved. However, It's a precarious path to allow the most challenging exceptions to define overarching ethical and legal policy for all situations. While profound compassion is essential, the moral status of a fetus, significantly developed by, say, 20 or 22 weeks, remains a critical factor that cannot be summarily dismissed, even in the face of tragic diagnoses. My framework would advocate for robust, compassionate alternatives in such scenarios, such as perinatal hospice care, which provides support for families choosing to carry a baby with a life-limiting condition to term, and significantly enhanced support for adoption services. The question remains, to what extent does bodily autonomy, however crucial, entirely negate any and all consideration for a developing human life that has achieved a significant degree of biological viability and form, especially when alternatives that honor both the woman and the nascent life could be explored and supported? It's about seeking a nuanced approach that doesn't simply default to termination as the sole solution in every difficult circumstance post-first trimester.
Ms. Chen, Mr. Green emphasizes an escalating moral consideration for the fetus as it develops. How does your stance, which prioritizes bodily autonomy, account for this argument that society's interest in protecting potential life might justifiably increase as a pregnancy progresses?
Dr. Reed, while I understand the intuitive appeal of an escalating moral consideration for the fetus, the pregnant person's life, health, existing responsibilities, and fundamental autonomy must remain paramount throughout the entirety of the pregnancy. The capacity for fetal development does not, and should not, diminish the pregnant individual's personhood or their right to make decisions about their own body and future. They are the ones directly impacted, physically and emotionally. Decisions regarding later abortions, as I've stated, are almost invariably made under duress, often involving devastating medical news or acute personal crises. These are not casual choices. They are born of necessity and deep reflection. Furthermore, the notion of societal interest can be a precarious one if it leads to coercive policies against individuals. Restricting access to abortion, particularly later in pregnancy, doesn't eliminate it. It simply makes it less safe and more dangerous, disproportionately victimizing women who are already marginalized, lacking resources, or facing systemic inequities. True societal interest lies in supporting the health and well-being of its existing members, including ensuring they have the autonomy to make critical healthcare decisions.
Let's consider a specific, challenging scenario. Imagine a young woman, a victim of sexual assault, who only discovers her pregnancy late into the second trimester due to trauma-induced denial or irregular cycles. Alternatively, consider a woman whose mental health would be catastrophically endangered by continuing an unwanted pregnancy. How would your respective frameworks address these acute situations?
These are undeniably harrowing circumstances, Dr. Reed, evoking our deepest empathy. In situations as grievous as sexual assault resulting in a late-discovered pregnancy, any proposed restrictive framework must be crafted with extreme sensitivity and allow for clearly defined, albeit narrow, exceptions. Such exceptions would necessitate rigorous medical and ethical review, ensuring they are not exploited but genuinely address the profound trauma involved. The primary focus would remain on the compassionate care for the victim. Regarding severe threats to mental health, this also requires meticulous assessment by medical professionals. However, the principle of protecting developing fetal life, especially post-first trimester, when it is significantly more developed, would still hold considerable weight. We must ensure comprehensive support systems. Counseling, financial aid, adoption resources are robustly available, aiming to alleviate the woman's distress while still acknowledging the moral considerations towards the fetus.
Dr. Reed, these scenarios precisely illuminate the inherent cruelty and profound impracticality of imposing rigid, timeline-based abortion restrictions. To force a victim of sexual assault to navigate additional bureaucratic hurdles and justify her trauma to a panel to access care is a re-victimization. Her autonomy, her experience, must be central. Similarly, when a woman's mental health is at catastrophic risk, who are we, as a society or legislature, to dismiss that as less significant than a potential life, especially when her existing life and well-being are in jeopardy? These situations demand compassionate, individualized care that unequivocally trusts the woman, in consultation with her medical and mental health professionals, to make the decision that is best for her unique and often agonizing circumstances. Abstract timelines fail these real-world complexities.
In closing, Dr. Reed, and to our viewers, I want to reiterate that the call for restrictions on abortion after the first trimester stems from a deep-seated conviction regarding the escalating moral significance of fetal development. As a fetus matures, acquiring discernible human characteristics and the clear capacity for further development into a distinct individual, our societal obligation to afford it protection correspondingly intensifies. This is not about diminishing women or their autonomy. It is about striving for a judicious and ethical balance, acknowledging that the developing fetus is more than a mere extension of the woman's body. It is a nascent human life with its own moral trajectory. We seek a compassionate societal framework that offers comprehensive support to women facing difficult pregnancies, while concurrently providing greater legal acknowledgement and protection to the developing human being as it progresses towards viability and birth. It is an appeal to our shared values of responsibility and care for the most vulnerable, urging a legal structure that reflects the profound respect due to human life at all its stages of development.
Dr. Reed, in my concluding remarks, I must underscore the fundamental principle of bodily autonomy as an inalienable human right. Decisions about one's own body and reproductive capacity are among the most personal and consequential an individual can make. The reasons for seeking an abortion, particularly after the first trimester, are diverse, complex, and frequently tragic, often involving dire medical prognoses or profound personal crises. These are not decisions made lightly. Imposing restrictive abortion laws, especially those based on arbitrary gestational timelines, does not eliminate abortion. It merely makes it more dangerous, disproportionately harming women, particularly those already marginalized by socioeconomic factors or systemic inequities. Instead of punitive restrictions, our focus should be on fostering a society that provides comprehensive reproductive health education, accessible contraception, and robust support systems for parents and children. We must trust women to make informed, responsible decisions about their lives and their health. Let us champion policies that uphold dignity, ensure safety, and respect the full spectrum of human experience, rather than those that seek to control and limit fundamental freedoms.
Mr. Green, Ms. Chen, I extend my sincere gratitude to you both for your exceptionally thoughtful, articulate, and impassioned participation in this critical discussion tonight. Your arguments have starkly illuminated the core, conflicting principles at the heart of this debate. The deeply held beliefs about the moral status and protection of nascent fetal life, juxtaposed with the fundamental rights to bodily autonomy and comprehensive health care for women. This is, undeniably, an issue of profound complexity and acute sensitivity, with significant legal, ethical, and personal ramifications for all members of society. We hope this evening's discourse has provided our viewers with valuable perspectives to consider, and has encouraged further reflection on the multifaceted arguments presented. Thank you for joining us on Point of Contention. Good evening.